Like as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, I questioned my decision or not. Many people did. I had got into this prestigious institute, which is the Indian Institute of Science. The kind of people that I met,
Can you tell more about, your experience in Africa?
it's a place where all life began, right? But the costs are very high. I
Yeah.
said, yes. There was no question in my mind. I mean, Africa doesn't come every now and then in one's life.
Yeah.
Just basically needed to make people think a bit. For me, it was, you can say, a combination of the land, the wildlife, and the people, which made the whole journey magic.
You also have a very interesting project coming up.
That kind
Do
of
you
a
think
thing.
it is possible?
It's just foolishness to keep aside 8 to 9 months of their life for this. What are the challenges people face? So when the universe has sent me the idea, it will also find ways in which to 10 kilometers in a day. That
Yeah.
is what is on the plans. What are we here for? A typical Hallimane look, and we are all equal culprits. Train is a very good option.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Uncut with Shiva. In today's episode, we are going to talk about conservation of environment, wildlife, and earth. The guest who's going to come in our show today is Miss Jaya, and she has 3 decades of experience working as a journalist, and she also has a website which is called as The Earth Limited, and she's spreading awareness about the conservation of earth, natural resources, and a lot more things are happening in that particular website. So let's have an amazing discussion, and please don't forget to subscribe and share this particular video with your friends. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Shiva.
What were your early days in journalism?
Okay. Just like any early days were just like any regular job that people, many of you have these days. I mean, like a desk job. You go to office. We had shifts, but then we would go to office, sit at the desk, do our kind of editing. So it was a regular kind of a editing job. Mostly we used to call it as back then we didn't have the computers. Computers were just beginning to come in. This was in the, I would say, late 80s and early 90s. So it was mostly all handwritten copies we would edit by hand and things like that, and long process of the production part. The editing part was manual and it was a general thing, and it was dependent upon our knowledge of what's happening around us, the general knowledge, plus our English language proficiency, and all those things came into the play. So that was what it was. Nothing uh, more than that, because I was basically a sub editor. So that's a person who
Okay.
sits on the desk and corrects the copies of reporters that comes in. It was later, as a few years passed, that I got into reporting and heading all those kind of things.
In this journey of getting into the journalism, since you were working into in the editing and on a desk, basically a desk job, did you feel creatively you were satisfied?
Yeah, because it was something that I had gone looking for. I mean, like I had got into earlier kind of a research position, and I had quit that and then come into journalism because there was this urge in me towards writing. And the first few steps are a little bit, as I told you, very kind of a maybe mundane, regular kind of thing where you just sit and correct copy. So it was not that creative as such, it was just using my knowledge to do something. So the creative aspect came much later.
Okay. Earlier, you had also mentioned, when we were discussing, you were studying PhD in physics.
Mm.
So, PhD in physics and getting into journalism. At any point, did you question your decision?
Um, whether I questioned my decision or not, many people did question, especially at home,
Yeah.
because I had got into this prestigious institute, which is the Indian Institute of Science, for doing my research in physics. And after 1.5 to 2 years, I took this drastic step of coming away from that and getting into journalism. So it was to many people a kind of a come down. But to me, it was like following something which told in me that this is not what I want to do. Research and physics has always been a subject of interest for me. Physics continues to be. But I somehow felt that I was just doing probing one particular aspect and going deep into it while doing research. I wanted to get to know a broader field view was what I was looking at. So I thought that, and I was lucky because in my work at the newspaper at Deccan Herald, I also got to handle the science section. So then I got to meet many scientists. So that way, my knowledge of science, I would say, vastly improved.
It's broadened and it's improved. Yeah.
Yeah, in various fields. It was not just physics, biology, all the chemistry. I met people across these disciplines. So there was a lot of expansion of knowledge.
Okay, that's very interesting, ma'am. Ma'am, also, um, I want to know how did you feel, when there was a decision made by your editor, and he all of a sudden told you to head the Sunday magazine. How was your mindset and your thought process was working on when this particular decision was thrown at you?
One thing is, I couldn't say no. I mean, if I said no, it would be like, it is also like kind of maybe saying that something that I can't do. Always I've had this attitude of whatever I fear or whatever I am a little bit hesitant about, I tend to push myself into it. It's like once you jump into it, it's a very easy, I have found it's an easy way of conquering fear. So I
Yeah.
was just, as I told you, doing this desk job, sitting and editing other people's copies. When one fine day the editor called me and told me he wanted me to head the Sunday magazine. And I had no idea, no clue at all how to do it because the person who was handling it was not happy with the decision that she was asked to move away. So when she left, she did not leave any kind of, what do you say, help for me in terms of who to contact, who are the contact list of people, the writers who were writing for the magazine and things like that. So I had to start from the scratch. So when he said I have to do it, I had to take on that role. Few days or maybe even weeks were very tough. I had a headache every night when I come back home because I would be thinking of what to do tomorrow, what are the people whom I can contact, what are the articles I can get into the magazine, because it is a every week kind of a production, right? But after a few months, maybe after some 5 to 6 months, I kind of settled in, had found my place, my niche, as they say, and found a few people who were good writers, and then things kind of settled, and I began to enjoy it. So
Yeah.
from a little bit of stress and tension to enjoyment, it was a few days in between, and I think that's same for anybody.
Yeah.
Initially, we all tend to get scared by some new project or something put on our heads. Then slowly, as we learning, I think, is the key here. If you are open to learning, I have found anything is possible.
Yeah. That's very true, ma'am. Ma'am, also wanted to know your thoughts about when you were in this role, heading Sunday magazine. Definitely, you will be meeting many, people from many different professionals. How did this role brought in touch with, the artists, scientists, and conservationists? How did this interaction shape you in your career?
Hmm. It did, of course, as you said, shape me a lot because it was like the kind of people that I met. who kind of began to inspire me with their stories. And of course, as you said, I met people across a few disciplines. I met scientists, some famous ones, some not so very famous ones. I also met a French astronaut who spoke about his days and his experience up there in the um,
The space.
space station, International Space Station. So astronomy was something I've always been interested in, thanks to Carl Sagan and his TV series called Cosmos. So the wide, vast universe out there and what it constitutes, what is happening out there, all those mysteries were something which I was very attracted to. So meeting these kind of people, some I also met Jane Goodall, who recently passed away. She was a person who has really worked for wildlife and nature conservation, especially her work with chimpanzees is very well known. So she
Okay.
happened to come to one of the places here and give a talk. So after the talk, I was able to talk to her. So these kind of meetings kind of really helped me a lot and began to give me a sense of what I want to do with my life. I think they kind of shaped my life purpose, which was basically about nature, nature conservation, wildlife conservation, the whole lot of things.
Yeah.
Yeah, it did help me.
That's a very interesting way of shaping the career. You did mention once that you had like towards wildlife and environment related. So how's that? The wildlife and conservation became deeply so personal to you.
Yeah, how it became, yeah, it was again through people that I met. Some of them were famous people, as I told you, and but some were not so very famous people, but very passionate people. Like there's a group in Chikmagalur with whom I mm, got to be associated. It's led by one person called Girish. So this group of people in Chikmagalur, they are so passionate about the way they work to conserve their land and the wildlife there. I mean, like nobody has given appointed them as such to take care of the thing. They have self-appointed themselves. They are like watchguards of the place. Anything is happening, somebody or the other in that group is always watching out. They're alert to any kind of abnormal activities happening within the forest, within the mountain ranges. And then sometimes they take action. Sometimes they even go to court, file suits against illegal happenings and stuff like that. So they're following up even with the forest department. So these kind of people, plus some of the forest officials whom I happen to meet, the kind of passionate interest they had in that topic was something which also kind of inspired me. And I began to feel, yes, this is something which is very much needs the attention. I mean, like people are just interested in going to some places, enjoying and coming away. But what is happening right there? We have only 3% of our total geography of India is under protected land for these wildlife.
Okay.
3%, imagine. And even in this 3%, we can't leave it alone for wildlife. We need to build our roads going through them.
Yeah.
Sometimes there are areas within the forest which are being opened for mining because these are the areas which are rich in things like coal and we want coal. So they open up these areas. It does so much damage to the wildlife and the few forests that we have left. Just 3%, imagine. So those are
Yeah.
the kind of things which made me think that these are also the inheritors of the planet, right? It's not just human beings. So nobody talks for them. We need to have a group of people. We already have many of them. We need a wider group of people who talks for nature, for wildlife, and for all kinds of uh, nature kind of conservation.
Yeah.
So all
Um,
that did help me.
okay. All right. You also worked in environment and energy consulting firm. So, what did those experiences add to your journey?
Yeah,
Because working out of love towards conservation of environment and wildlife is totally different than being as a professional consultant is totally, because professional consultant is a job,
Mm.
but love towards environment conservation and wildlife, that is totally of our own interest.
Yes. It's
So
true.
yeah,
It's interesting that you speak of that because the 5 years that I spent with that company, which was into energy and environment consulting, was for me mostly a kind of a realization of how corporate life is. I came from a journalism background. A journalism background is more like a kind of a, like a, where you're an activist. You're working out, you're speaking about something which is wrong, which things are going wrong. But in corporate, it's a totally different thing, right? It's all about profits and stuff like that. So
correct.
for me, that stint of 5 years was more of a eye opener towards how corporate life is, and of course how they work, their professionalism and things like that. It was when I got into WCS, which is Wildlife Conservation Society, that I got to know much more about what is happening in the forests with the wildlife, with the human wildlife interactions, how the habitats are being fragmented, how the forests are being lost, to so many various reasons. All those things came when I worked with WCS. It's neither a NGO or a corporate thing. It's more of a like a trust, a society as they call it. So there I got real exposure to what is happening there. And I began to realize that these are the places where we really need to put some kind of a um, rules, more of a rules, regulations to see that things don't get further worse. Like for instance, there was recently a news, I don't know if you heard, that a man was killed by a leopard in somewhere in Maharashtra. So
Okay.
obviously it's not a good thing for the family that has lost a man and life has been lost.
Yeah.
But the reactionary kind of action which was taken by the government, which was they captured around 40 to 50 or even more leopards from the area, and they put them all in cages. And right now, no, it's not very clear yet what they're going to do to them. Are they going to send them all to the zoo? And why were so many of them captured? What is the problem? Instead of looking at the problem of why this happened, did the leopard stray into a human habitat and kill the human? Or was it had become a man eater? We do not know all those things. But why were all these leopards rounded up? When you look at all those things, you realize that even these animals have their habitat, they have their territory.
Yeah.
So when they are losing out their territory, what happens? They lose their prey, their natural prey, which they eat. So then they start coming out for cattle and stuff like that, and then contact with human beings happens.
That's right.
Interesting story that I also came to know. It's a real life story, of course. This happened a few years ago. A leopard, which was causing this kind of fear among the people, was captured by the department, forest department, and transported some 300 kilometers away. This was again in Maharashtra, to a distance away, and they had radio collared the leopard so that they can watch where it's moving. Very interestingly, what happened was this leopard moved 300 kilometers from where it was put back to its home, because even animals have what they call their home, right? So
Yeah.
it knew the path and it came crossing roads, railway lines, industrial areas, and not in a single place in that almost, I think it took it around a month or 2 months or maybe a bit more. Not a single human being saw it. So it means how well they can camouflage and hide themselves away from humans.
Yeah.
Sadly, it reached, was very close to reaching its home when it was killed on the highway by a speeding vehicle. So
Yeah.
this
That's so
story shows us
unfortunate.
that, yeah, animals too have their thing. I mean, like you're displacing them. What's going to happen? There's no food, there's no land. So these kind of issues were highlighted during my stint in WCS. I began to have a deeper kind of idea of what's happening.
Okay. That is very interesting, ma'am. I'm really excited to know your experience in Africa, when you had been there. So, can you tell more about, your experience in Africa?
Africa was always a dream for me, because whenever my friends would ask me, "Are you interested in going to this place, Switzerland, that place, this place?" The kind of places which people usually go to, I was never really interested. I would say that Africa is the only place I want to go, because to me that's a very exciting place. It's a place where all life began, right? All
Yeah.
kinds of land-based life started evolved from Africa. So I was always keen to go see there, because of course the wildlife is also something really amazing. But the costs are very high. very prohibitively high. It's only maybe the foreigners who can afford it, the kind of in any of these countries which are usually visited. So I'd given up on the dream. Suddenly, one fine day, a friend who was doing a cake for a, she's into all this, what do you call as off-road driving and stuff like that. So she was planning a team expedition into African uh, thing. Like, so she asked me, she wanted somebody to do the communications part, to kind of write down the challenges we face, the problems we face, and things like that. When she asked me, I just couldn't believe it that Africa has landed in my lap. I of course did think even for a second. I said, yes, I will come.
You
I'll drop
manifested,
water.
and the universe got into,
Exactly.
get you to Africa.
Yeah, exactly. So I said yes, there was no thinking twice, and it was for 2 months. So initially, first reaction from my family was, for 2 months, you're going to go away. I
Yeah.
said yes. There was no question in my mind. I mean, Africa doesn't come every now and then in one's life. So I said yes, and then we went, and it was a beautiful 2 months that we were on. We went through five of the countries, beginning with
Okay.
Namibia, Botswana, Zambia, Kenya, and Tanzania, and Kenya. Then, of course, I came back. So for me, it was, you can say, combination of the land, the wildlife, and the people, which made the whole journey magical. I don't think, I kind of keep telling people at home, I'm not interested in seeing anything else. I have seen it all. Like, if you have seen, there's a very famous Hollywood movie called Out of Africa.
Out
It
of Africa.
was
Okay.
starring Meryl Streep and this actor who recently passed away. What was his name? I'm not remembering. Famous person. So he says, they were shooting for one of the scenes. They were in one of those jets, small kind of planes which fly through the land. And these people asked him, Robert Redford, they asked him, shall we have a double for you instead of you flying those very flimsy planes? He said, no, if I have to crash here also, I don't mind, because I don't mind crashing in the most beautiful place on earth, he says. And I entirely agree with him. It's really beautiful, so vast. Some of the stretches, if you stand, land just stretches out. It's flat land stretching into the horizon, with no ups and downs. And then you see the sun, which looks almost double the size of what we see here.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful place. So, and the animals that we got to see were something amazing. So many herbivores. Here, when we look in India, we say deer, sambar, and maybe a nilgai and a few others, maybe a few gaur and some stuff. There you have almost, I think, there are more than 40 to 50 herbivores itself, species of herbivores. I can remember which we saw. And there are the big canines, right? All the lions, the leopards, cheetahs.
Yeah.
Um, Only tigers are missing out there. So people are also very interesting, very simple, friendly, jovial, in spite of being poor. Many of them are poor. I mean, like I was telling to my family, Africa is in a state today where India was, say, 50 years back. Is a kind of thing that you can think, imagine. There are still people who are digging the sand to get water.
Water. Yeah. I've
And
seen
then you
that
have
in a couple
these
of
parks.
documentary
So,
videos.
yeah. So, and the people are still living in huts with the tin sheets on top. And this is despite the fact that Africa is so rich in resources. They have zinc, copper, stuff like that, for which many of these countries have now come. It's called that right now we are witnessing what is called as the second scramble for Africa. You have the
Okay.
European Union, Saudi Arabia, Korea, China, even India to some extent, doing things there in Africa, whether it's agriculture, mining,
Or
all those
industrial
kind of
activities.
things. Yeah. So, and the people are so welcoming. They don't realize that they're somewhere being exploited. They're too friendly and they're too simple. That's what my experience of Africans were. Mm.
Okay. If you compare the African wildlife, what you have experienced,
Mm.
if you compare that with the Indian wildlife, what we have in India, so which place would you feel, okay, this particular region has more wildlife, as compared to, we can compare it with Africa. So which part of India would you say?
Of course, India is much smaller compared to Africa. I mean, it's a whole continent out there with many countries. So Indian forests are different. We have from tropical to dry deciduous and all those kind of things. There you have mostly a kind of what we went through. We didn't go into Congo, which is the deep rainforest, which you see in Africa. The places that we visited were mostly like similar to our dry deciduous forest, the kind that we see in Bandipur, Nagarhole, and all that places. And in some patches of, say, Botswana, we also saw the um, rainforest kind of patches also. But in terms of wildlife, yeah, we just can't compare because the areas are much different, right? India and Africa. There, of
Yeah,
course, is huge, vast areas. So lots of things. I mean, like even in Africa today, uh, there has been a loss of habitat, that is, places for wildlife, has shrunk by 76% in just 50 years. So imagine in 50 years, the land which was there for this wildlife has gone. 75% of it is gone. So naturally, what has happened is there's been a lot of loss of wildlife too. There was the elephants, the African elephant population has come down by 86% in just 30 years. Imagine that. 86% it's come down
86%. It's
in
has come
30
down. Yeah,
years. And it's all due to human activity. Human population everywhere is increasing, right? So we want the land, which is actually was their land. We take it over for growing our crops or whatever, grazing and all that stuff.
yeah,
So the problems are there, but yeah, there is lots to be done. And another interesting fact about Africa, if you have read, is it's called as a fire continent. That is, they say that at any time there is some part of Africa that is always burning, and we actually got to see that in a national park in Tanzania. It's called Teringire National Park. When we were there, huge parts of the forest had been set on fire. They do it too so that fresh grass comes. They say
okay.
otherwise these herbivores will not find grass, and other kind of dense growth will prevent them from moving around. I can't tell you, there were patches of the sky we couldn't see because of the thick smoke all
Yeah,
around. I mean, like I was shocked, but then I was told, yeah, this is a practice. Everywhere you see people doing it. The other thing is, as I told you, people there are very many of them are poor, so they burn firewood for cooking, and this firewood, more than firewood, it's charcoal. So how
charcoal.
they
Yeah,
do it is these fresh trees, not even old trees. There is something called the mopane trees. The fresh ones they cut down, they burn it under the ground. They cover it with sand and then burn it. Only then it becomes a kind of charcoal they need. So that gives rise to smoke. Then there are patches that somebody or the other will be putting fire to clear up the land. All these are funnily something which you can see from the plane. When you're landing in Africa or flying over Africa, you can actually see parts of it with smoke coming up.
smoke coming
Somewhere
up.
or the
Right.
other, there is fire going. So there is a lot of scope for conservation, but there is also need to see that human beings and the animals coexist. That things have been tried out in Masai Mara with the people working for conservation and stuff like that. But it's the same story everywhere.
Yeah,
Humans are taking over the planet.
planet. Yeah, that's true. Ma'am, let's talk about the initiative about your website, the sustainability website, which you are running. So, can you tell more about that?
Yeah, basically, it was also the same thing, the feeling that there is a lack of awareness among people for what's happening around the planet. Not in just terms of wildlife. I'm now talking about the planet sustainability as such. We are digging up the planet. We want the minerals for all the gadgets that we use. We are producing so much, right? I mean, in terms of clothes and uh, all apparels or whatever it is. Because the thing right now is that we want more and more and more of this kind of stuff. We are not realizing what we are doing and how we are creating huge mounds of waste on the planet. Where is it all going? What is happening to the things that we are doing? So, from all those points, I felt that there is a need for awareness. So, the website, which we called as the Earth Limited, Limited is kind of like a punning on the word that this planet is limited. It's not unlimited.
Yeah.
So we have to work within the parameters of sustainability if our next future generations need to have something. Otherwise, we'll finish it all right now. Dig up all the minerals for all the things that we need. Nothing is, it's not being regenerated, right? So, also in terms of the waste we are producing, that's also colossal waste. So,
Yeah.
just basically needed to make people think a bit. Do you need to buy something before you buy? Do you really need it? Why do you need it? That kind of pausing and asking certain questions to yourself. What are the things you can do differently in terms of conserving energy, water, um, any kind of a product? All those kind of things was what we planned. But the two other people who were with me initially, they got busy. So I have been left holding the baby. So the thing is going a bit slow. I need to find some ways in which to speed up or get people into the thing so that they can work with me. People who are basically passionate about the same topic of planet, conserving the planet for future life, all
Yeah,
kinds of life.
I'm sure if anyone listening to this podcast, so definitely they'll come forward to join you and support in terms of whatever is needed for the website.
Hope so. Mhm.
Yeah, you also have a very interesting project coming up. So can you speak about the project? I'm sure many people will think whether this will, do we think it is possible? But if we don't try, it's
Yeah,
not possible.
correct.
So can you speak about the project which you are coming up?
It's more like another dream. Some people may call it a pipe dream. Some people may say it's just foolishness. But it was an idea which just came to me out of the blue maybe a month ago, a month or a few weeks ago. Just I was sitting and I just thought, why not have a padayatra, that is, walk across the country. Like, there are people who are doing it for different reasons. Some people do it for politics. That is what we mostly have seen.
Yeah.
Politicians going on their foot, like we had Rahul Gandhi do. And there have been also some spiritual leaders who have done the same. So I thought, why not do it for nature, walk for environment, that kind
Do
of
you
a
think
thing.
it is possible?
It is possible. It's only in terms of finding a team of people, like minded people, who believe that this is something important enough for them to keep aside 8 to 9 months of their life for this, because we'll need that much time to cover the country from south to north. So it will be a dedicated kind of time. So people need to believe and be deeply invested in the idea to join me along. So that again, like my website is a thing about spreading awareness on the topic, also to get to know from the ground what are the challenges people face. Why are they doing certain things which are going against nature, against environment? So if we can understand, we can maybe experts can come in later and kind of frame some certain solutions which are tailored to those situations. So that is the basic idea. And as I told you, it's just about more about spreading awareness. It is a big thing, but I believe it can happen. And the fact that the idea came out of the blue, I feel it's something that the universe sent. So when the universe has sent me the idea, it will also find ways in which to make it happen. So the plan is to do this next year, begin next year. Maybe this year we'll have a small pilot in one of the states here to look for some kind of a proof of concept. Is it really worth it? And also about commitment from the few who may join me, like how committed can people be to this kind of thing. But it is needed, is my strong belief, and I'm hoping that it can happen.
Is there any particular time frame?
No, I think it will take, we are trying to match it so that we do avoid peak summer and peak winter in the path that we take. So we may start sometime early February or late February next year, and maybe wind up by before October, hopefully. And so that's a plan. And at a rate of around 15 kilometers in a day, that's what we are aiming to walk. I mean, not at a stretch, maybe half of it early morning, and then the other half a little bit later when the sun is not too harsh. These are the kind of things we have just started. There are a few friends of mine who have been helping me with this kind of planning. There's a lot and lot of work to do, networking with people on the ground, trying to reach all the organizations in each place that we are going to visit, so that before
Yeah.
we go there, they have an idea we are going to come and they can assemble the people there, and we can have the talks or film shows or whatever with schools, panchayats, and all those kind of things. That
Yeah.
is what is on the plans.
Okay, that is amazing, plan. Will come in a very good way, and definitely there might be a lot of organizations which can join hands with you and support in your journey. Wanted to talk about your spiritual journey.
Mhm.
So because that is also one of the aspect in terms of awareness and environment conservation, because if you're spiritually connected, you can also connect with nature, and also you can also connect with many other things.
Yeah, I've always been interested in these kind of questions, like what are we here for? What exactly is the meaning of this life? You just are you just supposed to just live, die, eat, do all the things, and then just go on? What is there has to be something more. This
Correct.
feeling was there from me from my teenage days, and I've always been a seeker of truth, whether it was in terms of physics and science, where you're looking at the truth of the physical world. Spirituality takes us into seeking the truth in the world that we cannot see. There's a world beyond what we see around us. Like whatever religion you follow, there is that belief, right? And in Hinduism too, we know that, as they call this, the Maya, the illusion. We believe that this is the reality, but there is a stronger reality beyond this. So, how do we reach there? How do we get to that place? How do we get to see all those things? Those kind of things I felt pulled towards. And as you said rightly, it also kind of connects to this environmental journey, where both ways of thinking actually originate in the idea that everything is connected, everything is one. We are all not separate. If something is going to harm somebody else, you cannot really get pleasure in yourself for yourself. Like as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, even if a single creature is not happy on this planet, you cannot experience total happiness. Why? Because we are all part of one. And this is something which, even in science, there is a theory of Gaia, Gaia, it's called, where they believe that the earth is one organism. So everything within it is part of that organism. So if it's like if one part of your hand is paining, you won't have the rest, peace in the rest of your body. Same way, something is not right in this whole planet, then you cannot really experience full happiness. So from that point, I feel there is a commonality between both my nature love, nature conservation needs, and spirituality in making people see that we are all not separate, we are all connected. So when we are connected, we need to think of each other, think of all living species, not just humans, as being crucial for our wellness. If we have to be happy, everyone has to be happy. So basically, what people need to do is just sit with themselves, ask a few questions in silence. What is it that I really want in life? It's happiness. Am I going to get happiness by buying this thing, that thing, that thing, having two cars, two houses, and stuff like that? Or is this happiness coming from within? So, how can I tap this happiness within, which many people, many of our saints and swamis have told us that we have the happiness within us? How can we do that? Do it a few, begin with a few minutes of meditation every day. Just 5 minutes, nothing, no hi fi rocket science here. Just sitting, watching your breath going in and out. That kind of takes you to a state where there is no thoughts in your mind. When there are
Yeah.
no thoughts in your mind, they say, is when energy flows easily through you. And when that energy flows easily through you, things happen. And that when we experience, we realize. So I'm also still new in the journey, still exploring lots of miles to go before I reach any kind of a even a small thing of nirvana. Glimpse of nirvana is something which I cannot even dream of. This lots and lots to do. Lots of work, self work as they call it.
Yeah.
So goes along with both.
Ma'am, I have two more questions. You have a house which is in the nature.
Yeah, that was just again another dream out of my sustainability practice. We thought we won't do too much construction and stuff like that. So we had the workers dig up the mud from the place where we were building the house, and that mud was used to make the bricks, and the bricks were sun dried. So we didn't use any kind of energy was not spent in making those bricks, and there were no negative fallouts in the process. So we built the house and we used for the doors and windows all second-hand stuff. So we were not buying. So basically, the idea was let's keep it as minimal as possible, not encourage this concept of buying and adding new things to ourselves. So we had that, and the plan was also for solar lighting, but then it went out of our fund budget, so we stopped with that. Yeah, and that's a place where we still go, though there are some problems right now in terms of some cases, court case, and all that. We do still go there. And it's a place where you can really experience nature. There's no sound of vehicles, absolutely. The only sounds
Yes,
you hear are
that
of
is
dogs and birds.
absolutely, yeah, absolutely peace,
Yeah.
absolutely silence. And
And you can walk through the fields. There are neighboring fields of vegetables and flowers and stuff like that the farmers are growing. So it's like going past into the past, when people's lives were so simple.
yeah,
We just needed food to fill our stomachs. That's all we really need, actually, even today. But we have filled it up with a whole lot of things that we think we need.
I know. I like the the architecture, the design, which is very simple,
Mm,
and also because in modern houses, they have high-end granite floorings
mm,
and tails floorings, but in that particular house, you just have a very basic flooring, which is, I
mm,
think it's a red oxide or mud
mm.
flooring, I believe.
Yeah, yeah. We went for the typical Hallimane look, as the villagers used to have. That is,
Exactly.
but it comes with all the negatives, so-called, according to my children. We have sometimes rats, mice, sometimes we see snake skin. These are all the people living around there, right? So we can't really get rid of them. So as
Yeah.
long as you're fine in sharing the space with these things, it's a beautiful
We
place.
have built house in their territory, so we can't
Yeah,
avoid them, their
yeah,
visits
true.
to our house.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, Ma'am, the next question. If someone is listening to this podcast who's interested in nature conservation, about environment, wildlife, what would you tell them?
Yeah, there's lots, actually, lots and lots that needs to be conveyed, first of all, to people. Um, if you're interested in doing something for nature, first thing I would say is ask yourself a few questions. What are you doing which is actually harming the environment? Is there any way in which you can reduce that harm in terms of waste that you're creating, in terms of stuff that you're going on buying, which again means somewhere some unit is producing this stuff. And in the process, it's sending out emissions. These emissions are heating up the earth in terms of global warming. So every action that we do, even when we travel using our vehicles, we are sending out emissions. These emissions are all what, as we know, has caused the climate change today. We are seeing this increased heat in Bangalore today. Everybody is talking about it. It's also part of what has happened due to urbanization, where we have built up, removed all the trees and just added concrete. That has kind of created the heat. But it's also global warming, which has led to the extra heat today. and we are all equal culprits. Maybe a few nations, the Western nations, were largely responsible, but we are all still doing the same thing. So, are there ways in which we can reduce our carbon footprint? Means, what are the things which we are doing which are actually leading to adding more emissions up there in the atmosphere? Also, in terms of the waste that we are producing, all these are all the kind of things that we need to start asking ourselves, watch out, read out, stuff like that. That's very important. Like today, if I ask you, do you know which is the life form which is a majority on the land today? I'm not talking of bacteria. Bacteria we know are there everywhere and they're the maximum. Keeping aside bacteria, can you take a guess which is the life form which is a majority on the land today?
Maybe a earthworm or a grasshopper.
No. The actual, in terms of the biomass, a study was done by the, I think, the University of Oxford, close to you, which found that about 65% of all the biomass right now on the land is comprising cattle and livestock. These are the cows and the goats and the sheep and stuff like that, which we are growing for both meat and dairy. Imagine 67%, 65% of the numbers of living creatures on the land today are these. And
Yeah.
human beings are just 33%, and wildlife is 3%. Can you imagine that? So that is the amount that is like and what's happening as a process is for this 80 billion creatures that we are growing for milk and the meat, we need land, we need food, right, to give them, feed them. So
Yeah.
what we are doing, we are destroying our forests. We are destroying our forests to grow crops to feed these animals who are going to feed us.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of thing that we need to think. Fossil fuel is causing all the climate, global warming and climate change. But are we doing anything about it? When we travel, are we looking at the form of travel which is the best in terms of giving lesser emissions compared to the others? We are
Yeah.
not doing all those things. We are not even shutting off lights which are not being used.
Use
So
exactly.
every unit of power which we use is from burning coal in some place, right? And that is giving out emissions. When we don't shut down our laptop, if we shut down our laptop after use, 84% less consumption of power happens. We are not thinking of that. We have to keep thinking, probing deep, deep, deep. Carpool, why is it not happening? Why are we seeing so many vehicles on the road with just one person in the car?
Okay, let's put
Not only is
together
it
like
traffic jam. Yeah.
let's put together like this. What are these very simple habits which we can, which is in our hands, which we can do it. Small portion of contribution towards sustainable energy. Can we name them? Like, what are the very simple habits? One is you
Yeah.
said carpooling. Yeah, we can do carpooling. So what is next?
Carpooling you can do. You can conserve water and energy at home. Wherever possible, switch off the lights and the gadgets that you're not using, because those are all contributing to it. And when you're buying stuff, ask yourself, do you really need to buy this stuff? And when
Yeah.
you're buying something, it would be interesting to see, to follow its lifeline from the time it has landed in your house to you have used it, and finally, where does it go and form? What happens to it? If you can follow that lifeline, you will be quite amazed to see, oh my God, I'm creating so much of waste on the planet. So, do you really need those kind of things? And in terms of travel, as I said, opt for the less
Uh,
carbon heavy mode
Emission
of travel.
mode of
Yeah.
travel.
Actually, interestingly, traveling by train is a very good option compared to all other options, because a train is carrying so many people and going along, even though it's still burning some power, right? Power is needed. But that power is you being used to transport so many people. Instead, if you everybody is going to take their vehicles out and travel the same distance, you can imagine the number of tons of carbon dioxide which increases.
Which can
So
be
every
reduced. Yeah.
yeah, so every action that we do actually has a, it doesn't have to be any list of few things. It is everything that we do. We need to think of in terms of saving something for the future. in terms
Yeah.
of resources, whatever it is.
So we can,
And
whenever we go to supermarket, use your own bags. Don't go for
yes,
plastic bags.
exactly.
And now there are a lot of fruit vendors. They use paper bags,
Yeah.
and you
See,
can carry your. Yeah,
one cloth bag saves you the use of 600 plastic covers. And this plastic, as we know, is not degradable. It lies in the earth for about 400 or for many more years. When it breaks down into smaller particles of microplastics, it enters the soil, enters the water, gets back into our food and into our body. They have found plastic in the brain of people today, these
yeah,
microplastics. So we need to be
microplastics. Yeah,
aware of what we are doing and not just recently they found an elephant dead in one of the forests. And what they found was in its dung, they found a plastic cover, a milk sachet. Can you imagine? Into the forest it has reached this plastic pollution. And also, finally, there are lots of organizations around you who are doing the good work. So, as I keep telling my students when I teach in the college, just be part of any organization, whatever you're passionate about, some field in which you're passionate about. Join them. Be there with them during the weekend. It's just one day at the most in a week. You can just go spend 2, 3 hours learning from them. What are they doing? Some of them are conserving lakes. Lakes are very
yeah,
important in the cities. They bring down the temperature drastically and they also recharge the groundwater. So be with them or work with somebody who's cleaning up areas in the city. I mean, you may ask, why should I clean up what other people are throwing around? If you care for the planet, if you care for the earth, you have to join these kind of people. Then you get a feeling of satisfaction. There are many organizations doing all this kind of good work. Bigger organizations like Greenpeace are there who are doing lots of work. They're all volunteer driven. And those are the kind of things that we need to do if we care for the environment. That's
yeah,
the easiest thing to do. Do small things in our life, join the bigger groups because alone we will not be able to do much.
yeah.
If we
That's true.
join them, it's always better.
That's true. Yeah. Thank you so much, ma'am, for for your time and sharing a lot of information about the environment conservation and wildlife. I'm sure I'm gonna put all the details about your website and in the description. If anyone would like to join hands with you for your walk towards environment conservation, definitely they can reach out to you. So thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Thank you. And all the
thanks.
best.
Thank you so much, ma'am.